Is it working now?
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear myself. Very distracting. Nice. Okay. Yeah, I'm talking about a very interesting product we built for ourselves, mainly in our free time. On a retreat we had in May in Kitzbühel. Actually, I'm showing you a world premiere of a time-lapse video I just received in the morning from somebody who cut it. Yeah, but I won't show the video only. I will be talking a little bit about it before. Yeah, and what we did, we built the LEGO Millennium Falcon. You can see it over there. It's actually our second instance of the Millennium Falcon. The first one is currently in Unterföhring, I guess. Yeah. And what we actually also did is not only building this model, but we built it in record time, and we just received this certificate 2 days ago from the Book of Alternative Records, where we list it now as the team that built this guy in the fastest time. So I want to talk a little bit about how we did that, how it was possible to build it in 2 hours, 9 minutes, 53 seconds, and a little bit over 900 milliseconds. Yeah, and yeah, I want to talk about the set, of course, describe what this set what the features of this set are, and what the features are compared to other LEGO sets available. I will also give me a little 5 minutes to talk about the Millennium Falcon itself, yeah, the main part will be about how we disassembled the instructions to build a dependency tree of the single steps in this instruction. I just want to show you the instruction. It's lying over here, and it's well, actually, well, the Falcon itself weighs just as much as my older daughter, and this instruction manual here, yeah, I guess it's, yeah, it's really huge, and there's some nice pictures in there also, not only the instructions, but yeah, I guess if you want to see the pictures, you just have to buy the model yourself, or come to the front after the talk and have a look at the instructions. Yeah, and then I want to talk about what's actually agile in the process, how we built this model, just in case somebody wants to blame me for not talking about IT or software development here. And then I give some impressions of how we built the model. Okay, let's start. Of course, LEGO, Star Wars, and the Millennium Falcon, also Han Solo, Lando Calrissian, Han shot first, and stuff like that is all registered trademarks, so I consider it fair use to talk about it because I won't make any negative remarks. And yeah, this is the Millennium Falcon. And I have 2 screenshots from episodes 4 and 6 of the Star Wars movies, where you can see how the model evolved over time a little bit. This is the first model on the left-hand side. Well, you could blame it on the resolution of the image, but it doesn't have as much features as the model used for episode 6. And I guess they were also adding features for the newer release, the sequel movies, so it's getting more and more features, but it also gets more and more somehow damaged. You can really see how this ship is getting older throughout the movies, and I did a little research, and some wiki sites about Star Wars where all the nerds gather and talk about that stuff. They state that the Millennium Falcon is already 90 years old when it first appears in episode 4, so you could consider it some kind of a relic. And yeah, that's what Luke Skywalker thinks as well upon first seeing the Falcon. He just states, what a piece of junk, and it turns out it's not really a piece of junk, it just looks like one. Yeah. What is the Millennium Falcon? It's a Corellian YT-1300F light freighter. It's not a warship. It's used later on as a warship, but it's actually built as a freighter. It has been heavily modified by its pilots. The first one mentioned in the Star Wars canon is Lando Calrissian. Then later, of course, the most popular pilot, Han Solo. And later in the sequel movies, it's Rey, whatever her last name is. We still don't know. Is it Skywalker, Solo? No, we don't know. Okay. Actually, the Millennium Falcon has the most screen time of all vessels in the Star Wars universe and throughout all the movies. It appears in all the episodes from 3 to 8, and also in the spin-off movies. The first one was Rogue One, and the second one coming out next week, Solo, a Star Wars movie. But, well, let's turn away from the Falcon itself a little bit and go into the details of the set. It's the largest set that LEGO ever officially produced. There are some sets like built in the LEGO Land in Denmark or somewhere else that are even larger. I did some counting yesterday. It's actually 669 unique parts, and in average, each part is contained in the set 11 times. And well, there are people in the world that deal a little bit with LEGO also in their research, and I just found this little graph here, and it's actually showing the double log of the number of LEGO pieces included in a set versus, or yeah, it's the other way around, but yeah, the number of unique LEGO parts in a set versus the total number of LEGO parts, and it's actually pretty. Yeah, a pretty straight line here. So LEGO sets tend to follow a common pattern, which is written down there. And yeah, I wanted to compare the Falcon to that. And yes, we are up there. You may have seen it. Yeah. So the research here was here was based on about 400 LEGO sets available in 2002, and yeah, it still didn't change much. So the Millennium Falcon dot is somewhere on this line approximately. So it's a pretty standard set, I would say. Yes. What else are the features of this set? Well, we have an astonishing 1,379 steps in this manual over there. That's why it's so heavy and so large. And yeah, the model itself, it varies a little bit depending on the source you take, but it's approximately 20 centimeters high, 80 centimeters long, and 56 centimeters wide, and it weighs 13.2 kilograms. And interestingly, it's already the 9th official Millennium Falcon model of LEGO. So they started in 1999 with the first design of a LEGO Millennium Falcon. It looked a little bit, well, not just like the Falcon in the original, but they improved really much, and yeah, the features evolved in a little more softer edges and stuff like that, things that LEGO didn't care about before they did this Falcon or all the Falcon models, because round corners and stuff like that is not really easy to achieve with LEGO. Okay, so this is how the model looks like for everyone who can't see it over there. These are the official advertising pictures from the LEGO website. And yeah, another one. Yeah, and that's, yeah. in principle, all the facts about the Millennium Falcon and the model. Let's turn into what we actually did. Let's turn to our attention to what we actually did. The first step was to look at the instructions really in detail. And the first thing is to recognize how such an instruction is built up. And of course, we all know, as we hopefully all played with LEGO, otherwise probably talk to your parents. Yeah. I mean, it's never too late. So, yeah. The first thing one recognizes is that, okay, there are numbered steps which follow up to each other. And if you want to speed build something, it's not really helping if you only have a successive line of steps. So, well, can we find out where there are actually points where you can probably split up work or something like that? And yeah, fortunately, already on the second page, so this is the first page of the manual again, so the first real manual page of the manual again, and the second page next to it. And what you can see here is, there's step 8 and it starts something completely new. And at some point later on in the instruction manual, those two branches fuse together in a single step. And that was the main work done before the actual build, was to identify all those steps where things come together, and all the steps where you could start completely from scratch. And yeah, what came out of this is actually such graphs where you have some green bubbles here at the beginning. This is where you can start completely from scratch, and you have those joint nodes here where the things come together. And yeah, this is the graph for package 1. This is the graph for package 12 at the bottom. And as you may know, this model consists of 17 packages. And yeah, it was quite a lot of work to put those things together, but we managed to get to a dependency graph that looks like that, where the complete manual is somehow parsed in what depends on what step, which step depends on which step. And actually, if you can't see it right now, it's available on GitHub. And there you can probably also zoom in. And it's not only the PDF that's available on GitHub, you can also download the .dot files. So you can, if you find an error in this dependency graph, which might be the case, which most probably is the case, that you may find an error there, you can also correct it on your own if you want. Otherwise, if you don't want to correct it on your own, you may keep it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So once this dependency graph was established, we learned in the first iteration of our build, the model that's currently in Unterföhring, that it's not quite so easy to understand this graph in the hectic of the build, because there are many little lines and little numbers printed between the lines, and yeah, that's not really what you want to read while you're trying to be as fast as possible. And so we created those story cards here, where there are denoted the entry points in the first line. So where can you start to build this particular part of the model? So you can start in parallel if you want to. And there are the links where the individual paths join together. And if there are dependencies, they are also depicted here. And very important, also the number of the step where the part is integrated. Because in our first attempt, we had lots of confusion with which step is actually, up to which step do we actually build. And which step is the one where it is all put together and stuff like that. So we made it very explicit what had to be done. This is so the first example is something that's, or a part that's completely independent, could be started from scratch. The second one is so-called integration story, where two parts are merged together. And we had actually a dedicated team for those integration tasks, where all the, so to speak, artifacts that were produced by the other teams were put together. Sorry, got a little bit of sore throat due to hay fever. Okay, so those were the stories we then implemented. And yeah, now the completely legit question is, what's agile about that? You've seen the dependency graph. It looks like not so agile, like the classical waterfall processes. And we try to keep it as agile as possible in terms of we had long-lived teams. So the teams were not, you know, merged together or split up. All the teams had a shared product backlog, and they shared the people that were responsible for handing out and collecting in the stories. And you could also say that we had some kind of a team-wise sprint backlog. If you see a component as a sprint, the team could completely on their own decide how to actually build this this module. And I have seen many different approaches to that. So there were people that built completely in pairing. So two people actually building all the steps together. There were teams that somehow specialized themselves, so the members of the team somehow specialized into searching, building, and verifying the quality of the module. What I've seen very often is some kind of a review process. So if a part is finished, somebody else takes it, looks at the instructions, and sees that every piece is actually in the right place, because there's nothing that costs more time than changing a part that is already delivered to the integration team and doesn't fit. Because that stops the whole process immediately. And what we also planned and in a way did is to have retrospectives every 20 minutes to see what did we learn in the last 20 minutes, what works well, what doesn't work so well, so that the teams could actually learn from each other's experiences. Yeah. Okay, what you can see here is our product owner team. That's Luca, Markus, and me. And we actually, well, this time I did touch some Lego pieces, but the other two did not. In the first attempt, I actually did not touch any piece of this model, just handing out stories and collecting the results. Okay, yeah. As I already mentioned, the teams defined their own process. They defined how they build, and this is actually some impressions of how it looked like. Each team had a single table. They had their laptops with the instructions. If you ever try to attempt to break our record, use tablets for this, because you can zoom in there with a simple movement of your fingers. It's really helpful. What you can see here is the integration team, or here, and they actually had the original instruction due to several reasons. First one is the color of pieces isn't always clear from the electronic manual because of color differences in the displays. The second one is the original manual, so the written manual is actually, each step is the size of the actual model. So it's scale 1:1. So you can take pieces and look at, are they long enough or something like that. And what was also helpful was building your own LEGO lineals where you can measure the length of pieces, especially with like tubes or stuff like that. It's not always clear. So yeah, that's that. And actually, what's left is to show you what the impressions are from our build. And yeah, I got a video just this morning, and it's, yeah, just enjoy.
Die beschreiben jetzt gerade immer den ersten Schritt eines bestimmten Pakets. Ihr baut immer diesen kompletten Graphen auf. Alles, was durchgezogen ist. Ja? Grün umrandete Zahlen sind, wo ihr anfangen könnt. Wenn ihr parallelisieren wollt im Team, könnt ihr das machen, wenn ihr mehrere Zweige habt in einem Strang. Wenn nicht, geht es halt nicht. Es wird von jedem von euch, von jedem Team erstmal nur ein Paket bearbeitet, damit halt nicht die Teile von den einzelnen Paketen durcheinander kommen. Wenn ein Teil fertig ist, das Teil nach hier vorne, Post-it, Nummer draufschreiben, dann weiß das Integrationsteam, morgen Integrationsteam. Dann weiß das Integrationsteam immer, was fertig ist und welche Nummern sie gerade einbauen können. Es gibt zwei verschiedene Arten von diesen Storycards. Die einen sind ohne Dependencies, das sind Sachen, die kann man einfach so losbauen. Es gibt auch noch welche mit Dependencies. Das sind diese, wo immer die ganz großen Bilder drauf sind. Ja, da ist sozusagen immer der ganze Falke dran. Die sind erstmal sozusagen fürs Integrationsteam geblockt. Ja. Das Integrationsteam von vorne nach hinten einfach durcharbeiten. Wichtig auch, keine Panik, ja? Nicht irgendwie versuchen, so schnell wie möglich das Falsche aufzubauen. Lasst euch lieber ein bisschen mehr Zeit, wir haben die Storys diesmal wirklich durchdacht, wirklich gut geschnitten und sowas, dadurch werden wir viel Zeit gewinnen. Wir können nicht entspannt, aber so bauen, dass wir qualitativ liefern, wie immer. 3, 2, 1, los geht's! Sehr gut, wir haben seit dem letzten Mal überoptimiert tatsächlich.
Überoptimiert?
Ja, das letzte Mal war es so, dass wir gegen Ende Teams hatten, die noch an sehr großen Teilaufgaben gearbeitet haben und sozusagen vom Integrationsteam eingeholt worden sind. Diesmal haben wir den Fall, dass alle parallelisierbaren Stories fast sozusagen durch sind. Es gibt jetzt noch 2 Teams, die an Resten arbeiten und das Integrationsteam so ein bisschen noch was braucht. Ja.
Okay, thank you very much for watching. Last thing actually to do is, yeah, I already showed you the certificate. It looks so official. Yeah, but there's a signature on it, so it must be. Yeah. Last thing I wanted to do is thank a lot of people, but you may read it yourself if you want to, and we actually have a lot of time for questions and looking at the model and stuff like that discussion. Thank you very much.
So, thank you. So,
nee, ist nicht.
Sieht man nicht.
Well, there's yeah, there are several things you could still improve. First of all, what we actually did, we had teams of so-called, so to speak, unexperienced builders. So, yeah, no, not unexperienced in this. They built Lego, of course, before, but actually they were not really familiar with the model itself. So you could take the same team and do it another time, and I guess we would be faster. That would be one thing. Where it really gets complicated is to optimize the parallel streams. You could, of course, try to cut the stories smaller, so that more people work on different streams and they are joined together. But what actually was the time consuming factor was the integration of the parts in this case. There would be a possibility to parallelize a little bit more in package 1, so the integration team is a little bit faster there, but up from package 2, where you integrate the parts that are built in other teams, you cannot do anything anymore about that, I guess. Yeah. Pre-sorting pieces would be something that is actually could speed up the process, but it's somehow cheated if you pre-sort pieces before you start the counter. And I've seen a lot of teams actually doing the sorting as a first step when they receive their package of Lego bricks. So there's not much to do either, I guess. So it's minimal optimizations.
Okay, further questions?
Is the certificate like for first place that you was the fastest group?
Yes. So the question was, is this certificate actually certifying that we are the fastest? Yeah, it is. And we are currently actually, I guess we are among 3 teams that are actually listed on recordholders.org. And 2 of them actually only tried with 4 people. This was, and the times there were about 10 hours the first attempt, 8 hours second attempt, 6 hours third attempt, and 2 hours 9 minutes is now official. No, 4 persons came down to 6 hours approximately, and 27 people actually do it in 2 hours and 9 minutes.
That's not cost effective.
Well, to cite Obi-Wan Kenobi, from a certain point of view, you still get your product ready in time.
Do we have some further questions?
Yes.
So maybe what did you learn about scaled Scrum in this process?
A lot. A lot. First of all, so this is all very, scaled Scrum is a very opinionated field, and I try to not say too much about it, or the wrong things about it. First of all is leave the people alone. So if a team has a task and focuses on this task, you can just let it do this task and don't interfere. I tried it twice in the video, like, do you want something to drink? I just want to help you. And they were, go away, I'm working. This is, and that's the most important thing I learned, actually. What I already knew is, of course, scaling has its own cost it brings with it. And yeah, it is sometimes a tremendous cost. So if you compare 4 people building the Falcon in 6 hours and 27 in 2 hours, that's, the numbers speak for themselves. So I don't think you could somehow parallelize this more, or it wouldn't be effective, at least. Probably we also had too many people, but I mean, it was a fun event. Everyone could participate if they wanted. So, yeah, that are the main,
What's about the effort you had in advance of this exercise?
I don't want to talk about this. Yes, I guess you know the feeling when you start something and you get really excited about it, and then you do it and you forget the time, and then suddenly a week is gone. Yeah, this was how it worked. Yeah. It was a week. Yeah.
Okay.
do you have a few more statistics? Like, for example, now you can say essentially 1 part per second.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because it's something like 2 hours are 7,200 seconds, and are there more statistics like that?
Not yet. Not yet. We totally missed to actually measure KPIs or something like that. That is something that we should do the next time. Yeah, the very important fact you mentioned, and I actually forgot to mention, is that we actually put 1 piece into place per second, which is actually an enormous rate for LEGO, I guess. What we want to do in the next project, I don't think it will be a Falcon anymore or something like that, but I'm thinking of different things, is to actually measure the time that is used per story, and probably improve on that. So cut stories more to a more equal size. Yeah. What we tried was to do some kind of estimation up front, but actually we were too late. So the participation wasn't really that great. So yeah, no, not really more numbers yet.
You told us that you did this before, the same Falcon. The lessons learned you had, could take them within real projects already? And can you say something about this?
You mean into the second attempt or into actual?
So the lessons learned from the first to the second attempt, and then these lessons learned took in the real project? So
yeah, partially. So there was a lot to learn from the first attempt. The first thing was do the hard things first. So do the hard things first, so the complicated stuff first. So in this dependency graph, you will not see it if I show it here. You have in the last packages, like 16, 17, you have very, very large sub-modules of the Falcon that have to be built. And the first time we did it, we worked on the stories in succession. So what came first in the manual was worked on first, and the second time we moved the really large parts to the front and only had little tasks left. So that's what I mentioned in the middle of the video. So we optimized in a way that the integration team worked all the time. And yeah, that's actually something that is valuable for projects. I personally did not apply it to something yet because I'm in a very small project at the moment. But it is really very important to have your tasks prioritized in a way that the real critical lines are not interrupted. So if you have something like a deployment process or something like that, do the really hard things first, so the whole chain won't get interrupted.
And a slightly non-public lesson we took was that if we have teams of volunteers who are non-trained, that's fine, but you cannot put the non-trained people onto the critical path. So if you actually want to win a world record, and our preceding world record was really pretty good, there are some things which are hard. And so yeah, you can have a slow team, that's no problem, but you cannot have a slow integration team. And there also a lot of pressure actually builds up in the group if somebody is slow. In the individual team, that's okay, but if you have like literally 20 people standing around on your table watching your fingers move, that's a lot of pressure. So I think on the second one, we were very careful to balance that. And to took the really dangerous last long steps out of the way. Yeah. So we knew that that wouldn't be a failure. It's from a manager's perspective. Yeah. If you really want to win, you want to win. You don't want to be nice.
Okay.
Yes.
For 1 or 2 questions, yes.
1 or 2 questions. Yeah.
What was the most valuable lesson that you took from the retros? You told us that you did them 20.
Yeah,
all 20.
we did them, and the most, what was the most valuable? Several things, actually. I mean, the lesson learned is that one team can have an idea of doing something better, and it can just spread it to other teams. Like somebody built some kind of Lego lineal and said, okay, I just put it next to me and now I can measure things, and in the retro the word spread through the teams and suddenly you had the lineals all over the place. So the lesson learned is a retro can improve all the teams if one team has a good idea or something like that. The other thing is if a team somehow has a problem somewhere, like the integration team had the problem that there were errors piling up in the parts, and there was it was just the stage where they could complain about it, and all people knew, oh, okay, I have to pay a little bit more attention to the detail here. Oh, my screensaver.
Okay. Further questions?
It was wrong. That was right.
So,
okay.
If there are no more questions, then thank you again, Daniel.
Thank you very much.
For this nice talk.